All right, so picture this. You're standing there with what feels like the whole world. Everyone's listening intently to like this super powerful message. It's from a leader who literally changed the course of history for billions of people. That's what we're diving into today. The farewell sermon of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him.
And what's wild is that even though this was like over 1,400 years ago, during his last pilgrimage at Mount Arafat, the core of what he talked about, equality, justice, community, it just feels so relevant even today.
Totally. It's like this timeless wisdom. And for our listeners, this isn't just some history lesson. Think of it like discovering an ethical compass, fundamental ideas about being human regardless of your background or beliefs.
That's exactly it. Our mission today is to use the text to unpack the farewell sermon and go beyond the history to find those lasting ethical and social values.
So by the end, you'll not only get the key messages and why they were groundbreaking back then, but more importantly, how these principles can still give you like real food for thought and even be applied to your life today. So first off, what was the setting for this speech?
Okay, so the farewell sermon happened on Friday 9th of Dhul al-Hijjah in the 10th year AH. That's about March 6th, 632 CE. And the location was the Urana Valley of Mount Arafat during Hajj. The pilgrimage to Mecca, imagine hundreds, maybe thousands gathered on this huge plain.
And it wasn't just any Hajj, right? There was this feeling of finality.
Right, this was the prophet's last pilgrimage, and even his words had this weight to them. He said, "Listen to my words carefully, for I do not know whether I will be with you for another year." I mean, if you heard that, you'd know whatever comes next is seriously important.
And wasn't there a really important Quranic revelation around this time too that sort of solidified that feeling?
Yes, a pivotal moment. Quran 5.3 states, "This day I have perfected for you your religion and completed my favor upon you, and have approved for you Islam as religion." It was revealed around this time the understanding is that this verse signifies that the Islamic faith was complete, divine guidance had reached its peak. So when the prophet delivers the sermon, it's seen as the final perfected message, making that call to follow the Quran and his teachings, the Sunnah, even more important.
Wow, okay, so with that incredibly significant context, let's get into the actual message. What were some of the core principles that the prophet laid out?
One of the most powerful and revolutionary principles is the declaration of human equality and brotherhood. He said, and I'm quoting here, "All mankind is descended from Adam and Eve. An Arab has no superiority over a non-Arab, nor a non-Arab has any superiority over an Arab. There is no superiority of an Arab over a non-Arab, or a white person over a black person, except in piety and good action."
That's a huge statement, especially back then, to directly challenge those deep-rooted societal norms.
Right? Think about a society built on tribes and lineage. This just cuts through all of that. And it's rooted in the Quran, like in Surah Al-Hujurat 49.13, "O mankind, indeed, we have created you from male and female and made you peoples and tribes that you may know one another." And also Surah Nisa 4.1, "O mankind, fear your Lord who created you from one soul."
So it wasn't just social change, it was a divine principle.
Exactly, it dismantles any claim of superiority based on something as superficial as your ethnicity or race. The sermon says the only true measure of nobility is piety, taqwa, and your good actions. A huge call for unity, emphasizing our shared origin and rejecting division based on external factors.
Another big topic is the sanctity of life, property, and honor. Why was this so important?
He put so much emphasis on how sacred these three things are. He compared them to the sanctity of the sacred months. And Mecca itself, it wasn't just a suggestion, it was a fundamental principle for a just and secure society. Imagine if everyone actually followed this world without violence, theft, or ruining someone's reputation. That's the vision.
What about women's rights? We know historical context is crucial here, and there are often misunderstandings. What did the farewell sermon say about that?
The prophet gave a direct instruction about women, saying, "Treat your women well, for they are your partners and committed helpers." This shows how important it is to be kind, respectful, and fulfill women's rights, both in families and society. Remember, back then, in many pre-Islamic cultures, women's status was much lower. This is a huge step towards elevating them.
That's interesting because people sometimes get confused about equality versus gender roles in Islam. How does the sermon clarify this?
It's a crucial point. Islam, as mentioned in Surah Al-Imran 3.195, says men and women are completely equal when it comes to their spiritual worth and the rewards they get for their deeds. However, there are also roles and responsibilities within the family structure that are divinely assigned. As Surah An-Nisa 4.34 says, the emphasis on treating women well fits within that framework. It's about making sure they have dignity and their rights are protected even within those different roles. It's about partnership, mutual respect, and recognizing women's contributions to society.
That makes sense. Now, the sermon also stressed following specific sources of guidance, right?
Oh, absolutely central to it all. The prophet said, I have left you with two things. You will never go astray as long as you hold fast to them. The Book of Allah and my Sunnah. The Sunnah, like we said earlier, refers to his actions, sayings, and way of life, and our sources even point to collections like Malik's Muwatta, one of the first hadith compilations, which records this instruction.
So these are like the ultimate guidebooks for Muslims.
Exactly. The Quran and Sunnah are the primary sources for guidance in faith, ethics, and social conduct. They're a safeguard against misinterpretations and going off track, protecting against bid'ah innovation in religious matters.
The farewell sermon also talked about social justice and ethics, right?
Yeah, it did. He specifically prohibited usury riba, emphasizing fairness and ethical dealings in economics. The sermon also highlighted accountability before God. He said, "You will certainly meet your Lord, and he will certainly reckon your deeds." A well-known hadith from Bukhari. It emphasizes personal responsibility for everything you do in this life.
So how did this translate to practical advice for how people should treat each other?
He strongly advocated for justice in all interactions in business, family matters, everything. He warned against oppression, urging believers to be fair, honest, and have integrity in everything they do. That means creating fair economic systems, advocating for those who are marginalized, and just treating everyone with kindness and respect in your everyday life.
It sounds like unity within the community was another big point in the farewell sermon.
Definitely. He cautioned against sectarianism and the tribalism that was so common before Islam. He famously said, "Do not turn back into disbelievers after me striking the necks of one another." Another powerful warning recorded in Bukhari: maintaining unity, fostering brotherhood and solidarity within the Muslim community, no matter your background, is paramount.
It really feels like he covered so much in this sermon, like a blueprint for life. Are there any other misunderstandings about it that we should clarify for our listeners?
Yes, a really important one is understanding the connection between the declaration that Islam is complete and the continuous need for scholarly interpretation, or ijtihad. Some people might think that since Islam is complete, there's no need for further intellectual effort or reasoning. But our notes and the teachings of scholars like Imam al-Shafi'i emphasize that ijtihad is crucial for applying those timeless principles of the Quran and Sunnah to new and evolving situations. The foundation is complete, but understanding and applying it today requires that ongoing effort. And lastly, remember, the farewell sermon isn't just a historical document, as the focus on the Sunnah and Malik's Muwatta shows it gives us lasting ethical principles that are still relevant and applicable in our lives today.
So with all these important principles, what kind of practical advice can someone take from the farewell sermon and apply to their life right now?
It's surprisingly practical. The first thing is internalizing those core teachings. The equality of all people, the sacredness of life, property, and honor, and treating everyone, especially women, with kindness, respect, and fairness. It's about actively pursuing justice in your life and standing up for the rights and dignity of others. And how about on a larger scale within the community? On that level, it stresses the importance of strengthening bonds of brotherhood and unity, avoiding division and conflict, and always looking to the Quran and Sunnah for guidance in life's challenges. There's also a huge emphasis on personal accountability, encouraging self-reflection, muhasabah, to check your actions and intentions against those ethical principles. And finally, it highlights the need for constant learning, studying, and reflecting on these core texts.
Just as we wrap up this deep dive into the farewell sermon, what would you say is the most important thing for our listeners to take away from this?
I think the most powerful and lasting message that goes beyond time and background is the focus on universal human equality and the dignity of every single person. The statement that there's no superiority based on race, ethnicity, or social status except through piety and good deeds is just so relevant and vital today as we still see inequalities and division in the world.
It's a powerful reminder that even with all our differences, we're united by our shared humanity. The farewell sermon isn't just an ancient text. It's a living ethical framework for anyone wanting to live a just unified and spiritually fulfilling life.
Exactly. It's an enduring legacy that continues to inspire individuals and communities all over the world in their pursuit of justice, unity, and spiritual growth.
So here's something to think about as you go about your day, considering these ideas of equality and justice laid out over 1,400 years ago. How can you actually live them out in your interactions and the communities you're a part of? The sermon emphasizes both following those core texts and engaging in thoughtful reasoning. How do you see that balance playing out in our world today as we face these new challenges?
If you're interested in exploring this further, we encourage you to look deeper into the Quran and the Hadith collections. Also, learning about the lives and teachings of scholars like Imam al-Shafi'i can give you an even deeper understanding of these profound concepts.
In the end, the farewell sermon is like a timeless guide leading us toward a world built on compassion, justice, and unity. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Thank you.
And until next time.